Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am really excited to share my conversation today with Charlotte Ashamu. She is a global leader, an entrepreneur, a curator, and a board member. She is the founder and CEO of Dabira, a business specialized in building innovative programs for Africa's creative entrepreneurs while enabling a global community to experience Africa's contemporary creativity. Welcome to the show today, Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Felina.
Excited to have you and share your story. So with that, let's go back to the beginning, so to speak. Tell us where you're from, talk a bit about your career path, the twists and turns, a bit of education, if you don't mind mentioning kind of how you got your start and why you made those decisions. And then, of course, we will get to your business, which is a new business that you launched in 2020, and we'll talk about that. So take us away.
Thank you so much. That sounds great. My name is from Nigeria, where I am originally from. I come from a dual national household. My mother is American and my father is Nigerian. And I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. And my childhood in Lagos, Nigeria inspired me to become interested and engaged in the arts and creative production. But it wasn't the path that I chose to study, interestingly enough. My family moved to the United States in the early 90s, and we settled in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I grew up in a large university community around the University of Virginia. I ended up enrolling in Wellesley College in Massachusetts, where I studied political science and African studies. I always had an interest in the arts and fashion and design, but I just didn't think that I would be able to create a viable career. So I ended up enrolling in political science courses, primarily because I had always been interested and fascinated by the issue of inequality. Moving from the United States, moving from Nigeria to the United States, I wanted to always understand why countries globally were so unequal. Why were there differences in access to education, access to economic opportunity, justice, even within the United States? So those issues around inequality inspired my studies, and they have indeed, in fact, inspired what I do in my own business. You asked me to speak about education. Education was very important to me. Has been, not just in terms of giving me a rich academic foundation in what I do, but in my exposure to people. My academic studies led me to many, many interactions and engagements with people from all over the world and people from all over the African continent. You know, I always have to remind many Americans that Africa isn't a country. It's a continent of 55 countries. So I have been very fortunate through my education and career to have had opportunities to study, to learn, and to work all across a continent of 55 countries. Shortly after I completed my degree at Wellesley, I enrolled in graduate school at Columbia University. I studied at the School of International and Public Affairs. And my interest, again, was in learning about economic development, economic policy, and inequality with a focus on Africa. And after I continued my graduate studies, I found that I was mostly interested in working in international organizations. And the very first large international organization I worked for was the World Bank Group. And when I got my job at the World Bank Group, I was sent on an assignment to South Africa. And in South Africa, I had to adapt very quickly to a new country. Even though I had lived in West Africa and grew up there, South Africa was a country I'd never visited. There were new languages, a new culture I had to learn about really, really quickly. So I settled into South Africa, and the scope of my work within the World Bank Group was to work with and support small business owners. So it's actually very similar to the work that you now do with Hera Hub. I was in charge and responsible for developing all sorts of programs to train, support through mentorship and coaching and inspire business leaders in different industries, in particular women-owned businesses.
Wow. Wow. I want to just acknowledge that and pause on that. What an amazing adventure to, shortly thereafter your studies, go somewhere completely new and important work that you were doing. What did that feel like for you? Just talk about how you were feeling during that period of time.
Well, I felt very enriched because I felt like every week I was learning something new. The great thing about being in a country like South Africa is that there are just so many interesting places to go even as a domestic tourist. So I found that over the weekends, I was spending a lot of time doing two things. I was learning about South Africa's rich history by visiting different historical sites and places. And then I was spending a lot of time with entrepreneurs. I would seek out entrepreneurs. I would visit them in their home spaces, studios, offices. And I was just really intrigued by the stories of South African entrepreneurs in my community.
Wow. Awesome. 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 And how long were you in South Africa?
So I lived in South Africa for 8 years. And while I was there, I worked all across Africa, from Nigeria to Kenya to Senegal. And it was incredible. Even though I was in a country that had so much going on and so much to do, I was able to pretty much travel everywhere in Africa and learn and work in many, many other different countries.
Amazing. Amazing. So I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile here, and I'll disclosure. And I mean, you have this amazing, incredible background. I mean, you have done so much. Tell us more. Keep going here.
Well, I want to share that I spent many years working with entrepreneurs, on different projects that supported them, that helped to finance them, that helped to grow their businesses. And during that time, I got an entrepreneurial itch. I was so fascinated with entrepreneurship and trying different entrepreneurial projects, but I have to admit that I didn't yet have the courage to become an entrepreneur. I started enrolling in all sorts of courses and programs about entrepreneurship, but I just didn't feel ready to take the leap. And I share that story because I often meet many other women who have really interesting and rich jobs like I did. But really at heart want to become entrepreneurs, but just don't feel ready. And I offer that because I think I learned two things. The first is that entrepreneurship is not just restricted to being an independent business owner. Entrepreneurship can exist within large corporate organizations. Now, it's a different type of entrepreneurship, but you can still find ways to be entrepreneurial even if you're in a 9-to-5 job in a large corporate structure. And that's what I did because I wasn't ready yet to take that big leap.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up because you're right. There is opportunity. And I think a lot of companies continue to value that more and more, right? Some companies call it their 10% time where they're giving or could be more, but the time that they give their employees to create, to think of new ideas. Oftentimes we call that intrapreneurship. And I think more and more that will be the focus of companies in the future is helping incubate those ideas inside versus having to go outside to create them.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a huge opportunity.
Love it. Love it. So talk about some of your side hustles And then, what was the point, Charlotte, that you said, okay, I'm all in, I'm doing this, I'm leaving the safety of the corporate nest?
Well, one of my earliest side hustles was involved working with young artists and designers. I found when I lived in South Africa, I found a local university that had a fashion design program. And what I discovered was that the graduates of this program were extremely talented in their artistic or design practices, but they had no entrepreneurial skills, or that really wasn't the core focus of their studies. So what would happen is that once they graduated, they wouldn't have jobs. And they were struggling to figure out how to become entrepreneurs. And so my first side hustle was to create a program to work with graduates of fashion design schools in South Africa to help develop startups and to help get their work exposed to new customers, many of whom were my friends, professional men and women who were looking for new edgy designs or up-and-coming designers to wear. So that was my very first side hustle. And then from that, I developed a regular series of pop-up marketplaces in different cities across Africa that would feature and showcase the designers who I would mentor and coach. And that led to a formal marketplace called the Design Market. And I was just blown away with how popular it became and how significant it was for many young designers who needed to use it as a first entry point into a new market.
Charlotte, that sounds a little more than a side hustle. That sounds like a full-fledged business.
Well, I never formalized it as a business.
Okay.
And that's a lesson for other people, is that I was doing so much work, but yet I wasn't yet ready to formalize it. And as you can imagine, that's probably not the best idea when you put a lot of work and effort into something. But I'll just say this, because it's an important part of my upbringing and story. I come from a country and a family of entrepreneurs. Nigeria is one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world. Everybody's an entrepreneur. Everybody in Nigeria who has a busy corporate job, from the busy corporate executive to the mid-level manager, always has a side hustle. It's the nature of who we are. It's also just part of our society. So I've always grown up with entrepreneurial instincts, no matter what job I'm in.
I love that. And I see here you also did a certificate at the Paris Fashion Institute. Tell me how this plays into the timeline and how you decided to do that.
Well, I'd mentioned earlier that I had made the decision as an undergraduate to study political science. But I had also always had this interest in the arts and fashion. And I was very fortunate later in my career to be able to save enough money to take a sabbatical from work and enroll in a professional studies program that would allow me to extend my learning and really, really become knowledgeable about a field that I had always wanted to know more about or enter, but I was too scared because I didn't think I could build a career in. So that's what I did. I saved my money and I enrolled in a program called the Paris Fashion Institute. It has, I'd say mid-career, quite a number of mid-career professionals like myself at the time, who either wanted to pivot into fashion or wanted to take some time off to learn and understand the industry.
I love it. Well, I want to kind of talk a bit more about some of these transitions. So you're with the World Bank Group. It's the end of 2018, and then you moved over to the Smithsonian Institution. What prompted that shift?
Well, It was a surprise for me, Felina. Honestly, I had never thought that I would move back to the United States. For a long time, I had always seen myself as working internationally and coming back to the US once or twice a year to visit friends and family. But I really had felt a pull to come back and to get more professional exposure and development to the arts, and particularly the museum field. Given my interest in African art and creativity, I realized that what was missing from my portfolio of career experiences was experience in an arts institution. And so I thought that it would be strategic and interesting to come back and work for an institution like the Smithsonian, where I could learn about global best practices and learn from all sorts of experts in the arts and museum field.
Love it, love it. So I see that then that, of course, must have been a piece of the influence, as well as your entire background in the business that you launched in 2020. So talk about that again, decision to sort of leave the world of a steady paycheck into launching your own business.
Well, that transition wasn't as comfortable and as smooth as I would have liked. I was pushed into starting my own business, if I'm very honest. And, I was sharing with a friend the other day that sometimes we need pushes to really, really encourage us and motivate us to do the things that we've either been holding off or we've been too afraid to start. If I'm really honest, I was ready to start my business I wanted to start a business when I was running my side hustle, but I was too scared. And I kept holding on to the opportunity and the possibility of working in full-time jobs because I thought it would give me the stability and comfort that I wouldn't be able to get by being an independent entrepreneur. And of course, this year upended all of that. And there were a number of circumstances, but the circumstances of this year really pushed me into a place where I realized that the best option for me was to really go the harder route of learning and structuring and formalizing my business.
Yes, I'm with you there, Charlotte. I was 3 layoffs, and it was like, okay, gosh darn it, I need to control my own destiny here, and that's when I launched my business as well. And I think for a lot of folks, we need that nudge a bit. So let's get to your business. Tell us a bit about what you do. Again, it just ties so beautifully to what we've learned so far about your background.
Thanks, Felina. I'll start with the mission and the why of my business. The mission of my business is to build and develop entrepreneurs in Africa's creative industry. The reason I do that work is because I spoke about inequality earlier. I want to build economic opportunities in communities where there's poverty, in communities where there is disadvantage and economic injustice. I see the world of creativity as a means to do that, particularly creativity in Africa. Some of the best artists, musicians, designers come from the continent of 55 countries. And I wanted to help build opportunities for them. I wanted to help build wealth, and I wanted to help build economies that could create jobs, support small businesses. So that's the mission of my company, and the name of my company is Dabira. Dabira means to create something marvelous in the Yoruba language. The Yoruba language is my father's language from southwestern Nigeria.
Amazing. And, again, this is what you were doing for years and years in South Africa. You're just now extending that and bringing that culture to the US. Talk a bit about how it's gone in this last year. 2020 was challenging for a lot of reasons for all of us, but so far, how's it going? What progress have you made on the business? And then just functionally, what are some of the things that you're doing?
Okay, so I spoke about my mission, and so the way I execute my work right now is through two main service offerings. The first service offering is for companies, institutions, they could be educational institutions, international institutions that want to contribute to building creative entrepreneurs in Africa. I recently just got my first client, which is a large Ivy League university that has engaged me, my company, to design a program to work with museums and cultural institutions across Africa. And I'm curating a program that involves workshops and speakers and exchanges with a group of leaders and cultural entrepreneurs in Africa. The second service that Dabira offers is a service for African creative entrepreneurs. One of the things that African creative entrepreneurs typically struggle with is access to new markets. And Dabira helps them to grow their markets, particularly in the US, by connecting with new buyers, by getting exposure, particularly in the media, and by engaging what I call brand ambassadors that can help them strategically market and get new visibility for the amazing work that they do.
I love it. I love it. So, you've launched, you're, building programs, you're, elevating these amazing entrepreneurs, giving them exposure. Is there one story in particular that you can share, Charlotte, to continue to illustrate this? Maybe one entrepreneur that you've connected with that you're really excited about?
Yes, I'll speak about a past project I designed. The international e-commerce retailer Yoox, which used to be Net-a-Porter,
yes.
approached me because they were looking for African designers to create a capsule limited edition collection for a major international event. That they were designing this collection and this campaign with a magazine that merges fashion and football. And so they wanted to get designers.
Interesting.
Yes. They wanted to get designers from all over the world, and they wanted somebody to curate the collection from Africa. And so they approached me, engaged me, and I selected two young designers from Senegal. Their names are Neofar and Mwami. They're two young men who have amazing artistic and creative abilities. And so I worked with them to design and curate a collection of t-shirts and sweatshirts that were then sold on Yoox's e-commerce website.
Amazing.
And I was very encouraged by that project. Have gotten approached by other retailers who are potentially interested in similar engagements with African designers and see me as a way to help bridge their knowledge of African design and to connect them with the best creatives on the African continent.
Yes, you are perfectly poised for that, Charlotte. So looking forward, 2021, it's going to be an amazing year for all of us. I know, I just know it. What are some of the things, you have this project with the Ivy League school that you spoke of. What else are you really looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to introducing more programs digitally. I mentioned earlier that when I had my side hustle, I would organize and produce very large pop-up markets to feature young designers. And I had every intention of doing that last year, thinking that we would be through COVID by now, but clearly that's not the case.
Yes.
And so I've started to investigate and really plan a way to do that digitally. So I'm looking forward to launching a digital market this year that features some of the African artists and designers who I've worked with.
I love it. I love it. Do you have a name picked yet?
Well, I've called the marketplace the Design Market Africa, and I'm going to keep the name, even though we're going to migrate to a digital format.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Perfect. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Charlotte, if folks are listening to this and think, I need to know this woman, and they want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that and to learn more about the amazing work you're doing?
Thank you for asking. The easiest way is to go on Instagram or Facebook. My handle is Dabira Designs, and that's spelled DABIRADESIGNS, Dabira Designs. And we are very responsive, so just shoot me a message and follow us.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Charlotte. I have really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much, Felina. It's such a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.